All right, I don't know who needs to hear this, but Black Clover just reminded every single hater out there that it's just quite frankly built different. These last 3 chapters we just got, it's been pure unfiltered hype. We're talking about Asta cutting down his own mother, Yami tapping into the devil powers of a supreme devil, and Ryuya finally standing shoulder to shoulder with his siblings like an absolute king that he was born to be. Lucius tried to play God, and now he's getting cooked by the very humans that he called inferior. From Ryuya's emotional flashback that redefines what it means to have faith, to Asta and Yuno syncing up for what might be the final strike against the rogue Wizard King himself, this entire stretch of 3 chapters really feels like Tabata just pressed the endgame button, and I do very confidently believe that Black Clover might be rushing towards a conclusion with this upcoming volume. So buckle up, guys, because we're going to break down how this chapter turned Asta into a symbol of human defiance, Yami into a literal fusion of darkness and light, Ryuya being the embodiment of family legacy being reached, and all while setting up Black Clover's oh so important climax. Yes, that final sword slash may already be in motion, but what's the meaning behind it? Well, that's where things get weird. So let's get right into it for this chapter review for chapters 384 to 386 of Black Clover. As per usual, we'll do a quick recap of the chapter, and then we're going to unpack the greater narrative messaging here, because we're clearly rushing towards the end of the story, and Tabata, in my opinion, is starting to weave together some very interesting themes. And quick transparency note, I'm not going to be able to use as many panels, if any, in this review, just because of what happened with the last review, because I got a copyright strike from Shueisha. So let's get right into it. So in chapter 384, Ryuya, he's happy that Asta's back. Asta's welcoming everybody. Liebe is apologizing to Asta for freezing up at the sight of Asta's mom, who also helped raise Liebe and was like a mother to him. Ryuya, Langris, and Finral, they're all fired up and they're ready to go. They're ready to continue fighting. You see the impact that Asta's resilience has had on everyone. Noelle even shows up in a callback to what you had in that Black Clover movie, and she applauds Asta for surviving the attack that he did. Looks like she wanted to say something else, but then she just switched to that. And that's where we see her switch over to Charmy and say that she needs to recover her mana. And so Charmy is making the food for her. And as this is going on, Asta tells Mimosa that he'll survive the fight. And Noelle at that point activates her brand new sea goddess valkyrie dress, black dragon form, which has Asta's anti-magic signs on them, which was a very nice touch because I don't recall any other character having those markings added to their anti-magic upgrades in the past. Very nice touch that really highlights the bond that both of these characters have. And this leads to Noelle buying time for Asta as Lucius minions show up in an attempt to slow them down, because Lucius is trying to keep Asta and Yuno completely separated. Makes a ton of sense, as we'll see in a moment. And then as this is going on, we shift over to Hino country, where Paladin Heath is attacking Ryuya, and he's asking him, why would you go so far to protect Asta? And it's worth noting that Heath is being controlled by Lucius. So basically, Lucius is controlling him from afar. We then get a flashback from Ryuya where he gives a very heartwarming speech, and he reveals to us all of his memories, that he's been watching Asta his entire life overcome all the odds, having lived in a world where magic is everything, yet despite not having any magic of his own, he still endured, he grew stronger, and eventually he linked up with Yami, the very friend who Ryuya was trying to find this whole time. It was almost like destiny. Seeing Asta go through so much, it inspired him to never give up as well, and it gave him a renewed purpose, and it gave him the strength to put his faith in Asta. He directly tells Lucius through Heath that he's putting his trust in Asta, and this world will not bow down to the will of a tyrant like Lucius. And after this speech is done, just when it seems like Lucius via Heath is going to end up killing Ryuya, Yosuga shows up and he saves Ryuya by cutting Heath's neck off. So a bit anticlimactic of an ending for that, but very good payoff in my opinion, just because of what we got with that speech, and it shows just as Asta relied on people who could do things that he couldn't, Ryuya was doing the same thing. We then shift over to Yuno versus Lucius, and Yuno is running low on Asta's anti-magic. Lucius is bragging yet again, classic cliche shonen trope, but Asta shows up right after Yuno lands a blow, which prompts Lucius to once again summon Asta's mom as a paladin to try to gain a mental edge. And even Yuno calls it out, saying, "I can't believe you would do this." But this time, Liebe does not hesitate. He has his resolve, being as strong as ever, and he gives Asta the strength to cut down his mother. And this moment is very heartbreaking. If you remember, Liebe was there when Asta's mom talked about how she couldn't even hold her son because of her magic and etc. Asta is hugging his mom. Huge payoff here. Very beautiful writing. The chapter ends with Asta screaming at Lucius that this is the final battle and he better prepare himself. Now, in chapter 385, they basically get super hectic. This is some of the best artwork that Tabata's ever done. So the chapter starts off with Asta and Yuno teaming up to tag team Lucius. The rivals are slowly putting Lucius on a defensive with tons of high-speed combat, high-level magic spells being fired off, sword slashes attempting to strike him down. The battle, it is spreading all over the place. The chaos and damage, it is rising. The story is placing emphasis on how rivals will pull each other up in power, constantly trying to surpass one another, and we see that this is a problem for Lucius because he is now getting desperate. He's starting to realize that he is getting boxed in by two people that he had previously looked down upon. Now, just before we can truly sink our teeth into the meat of Lucius' despair, the story shifts over to Yami and Noct as they're being pressured by Morgan, who has been controlling their fight off screen the entire time. And so this leads to the mischievous Supreme Devil Adrenaline that we've all been watching, waiting to see what he would do. Well, he's finally made his move at long last, and he offers to help Yami defeat Morgan. Now, Yami breaks the fourth wall in a way by basically asking the same question that we as the audience have asked, which is, why do you want to help me? And Adrenaline says that when Yami was used to open the gate to the underworld, it made his body a good candidate for devil possession. And he says that watching Yami and the other humans fight like they did and overcome overwhelming odds against Lucifero, the king of hell, and eventually defeat him, it was something he found very interesting. He also states that even in the battle with Lucius that is ongoing, he's taken extreme joy out of watching humans fight back against overwhelming odds. And when Lucius talks to him telepathically and says, "Hey bro, what the hell are you doing?" Adrenaline says, "Hey, if you win, things are going to get boring, but if I help these guys win, things will get very interesting." And this leads to Yami using that power. He's got his sister, he's got Noct at his side, and they strike down Morgan. And this time they're combining dark and shadow magic with Adrenaline's light magic. Now, a quick note here. This is so symbolic because Tabata cooked with the imagery here. Dark magic and Lucifugus can be broken down in Latin as being the one who flees from God's light or the one who flees from the light of God's wrath. And Adrenaline can be found in the Hebrew Bible, 2 Kings 17:31, as being described as the fallen sun god, which makes it very fitting that he has light magic, and he says that only light magic can be used to strike down an angel. A devil saying something like that is very poetic, but it's also an inversion and strong inversion-based writing. I love what Tabata did here. The guy low-key is a genius for that. Now, in chapter 386, the chapter opens up with Mereoleona, and she defeats Asir Silver in combat, and this prompts Lucius to get annoyed and send off a giant attack. This time, one that's powerful enough to wipe out all the humans in the Clover Kingdom. Basically, think of this like Lucius is rage quitting. This attack is big enough in size that both Asta and Yuno know they cannot stop it, and if they do try to stop it, which they have no choice but to try to, Lucius will take advantage of the situation to strike them down. So this leads to Fuego and Mereoleona stepping in to power up. And you got Fuego going into Spirit Dive transformation. He says he's finally got the hang of it, and they push back the attack briefly, and This leads to a very beautiful moment. They call on Ryuya to jump in to help them, and this finishes Leo's arc in that he's now strong enough to stand beside his two legendary siblings in power while the entire Clover Kingdom watches. Basically, the black sheep of the family is now being acknowledged. I love that. It means he's reached his potential. This is another sign of Asta's impact continuing to pay dividends in this timeline, and it just shows you how much Lucius was right to fear Asta. This leads to Asta and Yuno taking advantage to land what might be the one final slash to strike down Lucius, the rogue Wizard King, but we won't know until the next chapter is released. Now, with the recap done, I have a lot I want to unpack here, starting with the defeat of Asir Silva. So I'm fine with Mereoleona taking her down because of the connection those two characters have, but I do have to say, it did feel like a little bit of a letdown. We didn't see Noelle, who just got her magic back, and she also got a buff. This is on top of her having Leviathan. The fact that we didn't see her take her mother down in a one-on-one fight, it's a little disappointing, though I understand the narrative payoff for why Mereoleona had to be the one to do it, especially since Noelle got her moment in the first fight where she teamed up with her siblings to strike down their mother. So it did close out that entire chapter on the Silva family saga. I understand from a writing perspective not wanting to have another fight because that might cheapen the payoff. And when we originally saw Asir get revived, that was something that I did note, like, hey, I'm not a fan of this because I thought that was the perfect ending. And I felt like you couldn't really top it. But I do feel as if, having had time to think about it, this might have been a missed opportunity. But I have the benefit of hindsight. But I am willing to see if this leads to Noelle helping in that final battle with Lucius. But given the pacing that we're on, I'm not too sure that this is going to be the case. With full bias being disclosed, I am a fan of Noelle. I keep my bias out of reviews, but I do want to disclose that here. I do want to see the three of them team up, especially given how the narrative kind of set it up, in my opinion, just given that Lucius pointed out how neither Noelle or Yuno, two people he singled out, the two people that have been the most impacted by Asta in this timeline, neither of them were ever supposed to be this strong. And it just feels like that might have been a better payoff than just the two rivals tag teaming Lucius, but I'm waiting to see, and I'm willing to wait to see what the payoff for this is going to be. Now, the next thing we get here is Asta's presence and the fact that he is being written as having the power of the ultimate underdog who's going to ascend to being Wizard King. So the chapters, these chapters, the true brilliance lies in how Asta's very existence continues to elevate everyone around him, not through divine intervention or overwhelming power, but through his sheer will and his human grit. From Noelle's new sea goddess Valkyrie dress, black dragon form, which literally incorporates Asta's anti-magic symbols, to Yuno pushing past his limits while fighting alongside him. Every major player in this entire arc is getting a gain in strength, and it's in some way due to Asta's influence. Even with Yami getting a gem like that, last stand by Yami is only made possible because of Asta's influence. They never would have got strong enough to even fight against Lucifero, which means that a Dremelic never would have helped them. It all goes back to Asta. His magicless nature has become a spark that has ignited the potential of everyone in this world filled with magic. It's a reoccurring theme that Tabata has now brought full circle. Noelle's armor is a physical manifestation of faith in Asta. That's why I like her having those markings on it. It's proof that his anti-magic isn't just a curse, but it's also a shared power of liberation. Liebe too mirrors this when he overcomes the trauma of facing their mother again, showing that Asta's courage doesn't just inspire strength, it also heals emotional wounds. Even Ryuya's flashback in Hino country drives this point home. Asta represents what it means to keep moving forward in a world that tells you you shouldn't exist. And that's exactly why he's worthy of becoming the next Wizard King. The Wizard King isn't defined by raw power. It's the ability to bring out the best in everyone under your banner. Asta's presence turns weakness into unity, despair into resolve, and it turns limits into milestones. Every battle he fights in is a mirror for others to find themselves something to look into. He may not have been born blessed by mana, but he is the living embodiment of what it means to surpass it. Now, This brings me to Adrenalic's betrayal and more of the symbolism on that. So Adrenalic helping Yami instead of betraying Lucius outright. That was genius writing, in my opinion. This was a heel turn, to use a wrestling term, that fulfilled a lot of fan expectations. We knew he was going to turn, but it's poetic and it's symbolically rich and it subverts expectations, because I don't think any of us saw him helping Yami specifically as being the way that he would betray Lucius. So again, dark magic and Lucifugus comes down into translation in Latin as being the one who flees God's light. That perfectly contrasts Adrenalic, whose name in Hebrew scripture, 2 Kings 17:31, refers to this fallen sun god, giving him light magic, making him the one to claim that only light can strike down an angel. It flips the religious archetypes on their head, and it continues to build on what we saw with the imagery done with the Quillith that we saw back in the Spade Kingdom arc. The fallen light god aiding humanity against a false angel. It is a poetic inversion at its finest. Rebellion reborn as redemption. Tabata is a fucking genius. Now, this gets even crazier when you take into account Lucius' god complex and the fall from grace. So Lucius' quest to rule the world of lesser beings, it mirrors Satan's fall from heaven, arrogance disguised as divine purpose. His desire to create perfect light, it echoes the same rebellion against the natural order that cast down the morning star down to Earth itself. The morning star obviously being Satan. That's what makes Asta and Yuno's partnership the perfect balance. Light and darkness, star and anti-magic. It's uniting not so much in opposition, but instead as harmony. Yuno blessed by mana, Asta rejected by mana, symbolize the two halves of humanity, those with gifts and those who make do without gifts. They are standing as equals. Their final clash with Lucius isn't just a battle for the world. It's also a moral correlation and correction of creation itself. Obviously, if you enjoyed this video, consider subscribing and clicking here to check out more videos from Anime Explained.